Okay, what is up, you guys? It is, you can clearly tell that I have, maybe you can't clearly tell, but I have just woken up, and I wanted to like insert this little disclaimer thing because it was distracting to me, and so I feel like it's going to be distracting to the audience. But I really, I really kind of refuse to sit down and try and talk about this book again. So what happened was, when I was filming it, like when I was setting up my camera, it felt like I was not the best in focus, but like I just wanted to do. I was, it's all me, right? So it didn't feel like it was the best in focus, and then I put the footage in to Premiere, and we were clearly not in focus. And what was really in focus were like the bookshelves behind me, and so here's the thing: I look a hot mess. But if you just like podcast it, right? So we just have the video playing in the background. You go about your day, wash some dishes. I think that we can all move on from this. We can all learn from this. And next time, I will I will take the couple extra minutes to make sure that we are situated correctly. Thanks for watching. Let's talk about Bobby Boy. One, filming this at night was probably not my most brilliant idea because my neighbors can be loud. So if things start going bump in the night, it is what it is. But I am here today. I don't want to say I'm here to drag adult science fiction fantasy booktube, but I need an explanation. Okay, like I'm calling 1-800 phone a friend. We are sitting here. I'm trying to win the $1,000,000 because I feel like I have been personally attacked. I have been lied to. I have been bamboozled. But I do feel very much like smoke has been blown up my ass because I read this book, The Eye of the World by Robert Jordan, and I refuse to believe that anybody who can read, comprehend the English language, or whatever. No, I'm not even going to say our translations, because sometimes the translated work be better. Sometimes the translation, they be adding some spice to it, they be fixing things. So I'm going to give Mr. Jordan the benefit of the doubt that maybe he had some really awesome translators, and maybe the translations are better, because this book right here, steaming hot garbage. Let's get into it, shall we? So, The Eye of the World by Robert Jordan purports to be an adult fantasy novel set in some country, some landmass. I don't know. I know location names for some of the places, what this continent place is called. Couldn't tell you. But it is essentially a little questy quest where there's a group of our main characters. We have Matt, Perrin, Rand, Moraine, Gwen, Nynaeve. They are all situated in the town of Two Rivers. At the start of the novel, a little festival situation's about to pop off, and then the festival is overrun by some Trollocs, which I'm assuming are like some evil entities, the bad people, creature things. Fuckery is afoot, essentially. That's all you need to know. It took 100 pages to get there, but 100 pages in, fuckery is afoot. So now we have that cast of characters that I just rambled off, and they're gonna go to, I think they're supposed to be going to Tarvalin, someplace off in the distant land, to like end the Trollocs. What they were gonna do there was it was not really relayed to me. I just know we were going. I knew the Trollocs were the bad people. There were some dark friends. The dark one was a looming threat on the other side of the forest. What have you. We're trying to defeat the evil entity. It's a high fantasy situation. Pretty par for the course, right? What I did not expect was for the book itself is 722 pages. There's like a glossary and a chapter preview. So I think Goodreads has it listed as 750 pages. I can assure you that I reached where it said end of book 1 and we slammed it shut. If I had been at a campsite, if I had had access to a grill,
we would have burned it. I would have relished in tearing each individual page out, all 722 of them, and feeding them to the fire. Sadly, I was not going to do all that on a Sunday. That was a lot of energy. I stayed at home. The book stayed intact. But for 722 pages, it's literally just a bunch of characters walking around. And I think that a lot of fantasy does this, right? Like, I'm not even going to argue that in my young adult space, there's, quest-like fantasy novels where there's a lot of characters walking around, or that there's even, little mini skirmishes that are kind of a tease. But I think that even accepting the fact that it's adult fantasy, right? So the language is supposed to be complex, which it wasn't. The world building's supposed to be the center, which again, it wasn't. The characters all felt like an afterthought. I don't think there was a single character in this novel that really had to be from this novel. Matt, Perrin, Rand were all essentially the same person. They just had like a different personality trait that was usually highlighted. And even then, if I didn't see the name, all of the dialogue could have been coming from a single entity the entire time. Like, we had a group of like 6 or 7 characters, and all of them could have dialogue that belonged to somebody else. None of them were really established as their own person, or even as a person. There was a lot of descriptive text in the book. All of the descriptive text was about shit that literally not only was not consequential, which again, I can understand in an adult high fantasy, right? Like, there's going to be things that are described in great detail that I really just don't care about. But even taking that into account, it would still not be the kind of a thing that would lend itself to world building. It would be like, here's a snail, and I'll describe this one snail in detail, but like, the actual city that they're in doesn't matter. The actual character interdynamics, like the play between characters, doesn't matter. What this quest is really doing doesn't matter. None of this book mattered. And I think that's what really just kind of, I don't want to say set me off, but it's like, even if I were to believe, like, reading this was going to be the start of Jordan's planned 12 books. Book number 12 was supposed to be the end of this, apparently, in my research, my little Googling. So even if I were to just come in and go, okay, this is one of 12, like, obviously, you can't walk into a first book in a 12-book series and expect to have all of the answers, get everything wrapped up. Adult high fantasy or, like, middle grade, like, obviously, even when things are going good, you have to kind of expect that fuckery is still going to be afoot. But here, not only did nothing happen, it just kind of plateaued. So you got like the scene at the beginning where it's like a slight blip where the Trollocs, this like evil creature things, like ransacked the festival that sort of started them on this journey. But even on the journey, all of the sort of like skirmishes that you might expect in a quest-like journey where you're traveling vast distances were all fade to black. So even there, you have all of this descriptive text, but none of it is used to actually engage the reader. I think that a lot, like, I don't understand, like, somebody in 1990, like, maybe 1990s fantasy just wasn't hitting, like, I don't know what that landscape was like. I kind of have to assume, though, that it was better than what Jordan was offering. I just kind of refuse to believe it. Like, it's not like fantasy is, like, this new genre. Like, it's been around for a while. Like, I think you could just, like, reread some, like, super old stuff in the 90s and probably would have had a better time. But in 2021, there really is no excuse to read The Eye of the World and for it to be this boring, and then to tell people, oh, you have to read hundreds of thousands of words, thousands and thousands and thousands of pages, numerous books to connect to the characters, because nothing was established here. Not world, not character dynamics, not the characters themselves. The big three. Even the magic system, which exists in this world, so it's not even like a low magic system situation like a Game of Thrones, which I think came out in like 1995, so just like a few years later, where even if you're like, okay, high fantasy, minimal magic, which I think Eye of the World kind of fits into. The magic does play a crucial part of the sort of overall arc that exists in this book, but again, it's very minimal. So even if you wanted to point to like another high fantasy adult novel, minimal magic, Game of Thrones, that one does firmly base it on these complicated interpersonal character dynamics where all of the characters are fully realized. And sure, George R.R. Martin is still writing that series and it might never be finished, and he's only had 5 books, and Jordan managed to get out 11 before he passed away. I think that these books are just subpar. But I can't delude myself the way I think I would have to delude myself to continue reading this series. Like, there was nothing, and I mean that. I am often prone to hyperbole. Like, very, very often. Especially when I think that hyperbole is kind of played into when people sit down to make these kind of rant reviews. But I need the person watching this to know that there was nothing compelling about this story. I like exactly 2 characters, Moraine, and then the antagonist of this novel, Ba-al-Zaman. I don't know what he was. I think he was like kind of a devil analog if you wanted to like do that. I don't think you really, although maybe you could. Because we got the Children of the Light, we got some dark friends, it seems to be demons. Maybe this is supposed to be some like Christians fun situation. I don't know. I'm not going to continue reading past this. But Ba-al-Zaman, the antagonist, anytime he popped in, that was some good shit. Good stuff was bound to happen anytime he popped in. His was the only dialogue, I guess, that you could say couldn't be given to somebody else. Like, his was very distinct in his interactions, although his interactions with everybody was the same. At first I thought it was kind of like him and Rand had like a special dynamic, but it was literally everybody he interacted with, it was the same. But still, I found him to be at least a compelling antagonist. But even Ba-al-Zaman, I'm sorry, that man, he himself could not carry the weight of the Eye of the World for 14 books. I also just have like a really hard time struggling to understand how a series that was supposed to have 12 books gets ballooned to 14. That seems a little excessive to me. I don't really want to find out how that happens. I literally want nothing to do with the Eye of the World, because it was so full of a lot of and it's not even hard to get through. Like, that's the thing. Like, all of this like really poorly written bullshit, this no plot, no magic system, no world building, was all easily digestible. So like, if you wanted to read some high fantasy that was really easy to get through, like, this exists. Like, the prose here is very simple. What makes it so hard to get through is just how boring, how utterly boring and bland the whole thing is. And so that's kind of what makes it difficult. If any, I kind of struggle calling this high fantasy. I think that high fantasy has to have really intricate world building. It has to have really intricate character dynamics. A lot of thought has to be given, and there was very clearly no thought given to this. People have said this is like Lord of the Rings fan fiction. I think that is an insult to fan fiction writers everywhere. I've not finished The Lord of the Rings. I did not watch the movies. I don't read Lord of the Rings fan fiction. But I'm almost positive that if I logged on to AO3 right now, I would find better written fan fiction of Lord of the Rings. I'm pretty sure I could find that exists in the world for free. So like, I honestly cannot in good faith recommend this series to literally anybody. And I feel like Robert Jordan, may he rest in peace. That man was he was the greatest scammer of all time. That he submitted this to Tor. That's who published this, right? Yes. Tor's really gonna hate me after this. I thought that maybe 2021 we could patch up our relationship. That's clearly not gonna happen. But he submitted this to Tor, and Tor in 1990, 1989 was like, you know what? Yes, let's do it. Let's make this happen. And he scammed them. And he got 12 books. I mean, eventually, like I said, it got ballooned to 14. But he got paid for 11 of those books. And I just think that's something. So he's the greatest scam artist of the high fantasy adult genre. I tip my hat to him, but that's literally it. If you've read this, and I feel like a lot of you have, because it's a pretty popular series from what I understand, please leave your thoughts down in the comment section below, along with this emoji. I'll see you guys again soon with another video, but until then, and until next time, bye.